Associate Director of Tiger. Tiger, if you don't know, is the independent...
I'm guessing you have to click this onto you.
Okay. About 5 years ago, John was the other associate on the Tiger board. He has subsequently gone on to lead the NFTL, National Film and Television School MA course. And that's really sort of interesting. John is also a member of BAFTA. BAFTA, if you didn't know, has fully embraced the computer game development industry so that they look after now film and television and computer games. I know that John actually stood quite recently for election to the BAFTA Game Development Board. I don't know whether or not he did.
Haven't heard anything, so assume not.
But,
mind you, I've got another story about that.
Yeah, the National Film and Television School is a centre of creative excellence. John leads the MA course, and I asked him to try and deliver a presentation about the cutting edge of interaction across those screens, across mobile television and, well, online PC, basically, tablets. I'm not sure how he's going to present that, but here is John Weinberg.
Hi. I think since we're about an hour behind, I'll probably be really brief and cut to the chase. And I might sort of do, I had lots of things to show and lots of, I might just lower the lights a little because it's late and you probably want to have a little rest at this stage. So let's see how that is. Is that good? That's kind of nicer, isn't it? Okay. So, as I say, what I was going to do is I was going to give quite a sort of extended treatise on interactive cinema from the beginning. And when you sort of try to talk about the cutting edge of things, you usually end up talking about the trailing edge, or what happened in the past. And that's what I was going to do. So I was going to show you lots of clips from the past of a history of cinema and showing how cinema was always interactive. I won't do that. I'll move on a bit. I might show you a few little clips, depending on what our time, but I'm just very conscious that it's late in the day, and you've got Dave here, who's going to really wow you, so I'm just going to, like, the sort of, I'm the cool down act, right? So, right. I wanted to talk about early cinema and how early cinema was essentially an interactive entity you could argue. And that slide had the Lumiere brothers, the arrival at the train at La Ciotat station. Okay, so here's, the thing is, does everyone know the story about the arrival of the train and what happened to the audience? Yes? Oh, good, interaction. Go on, tell us.
They all dived out of the way and were scared of the train coming through the seats.
Yeah, you agree? Yeah, allegedly. All right. Apparently, it's not. It's allegedly. It's not necessarily true. What I found out was the Lumiere brothers remade La Ciotat in 1935 as a 3D stereoscopic experiment, one of the early stereoscopic experiments. And there may have been some confusion with the audience reaction then and the audience reaction now. However, he also dug up this rather interesting clip. Oh my goodness! Don't worry about that. I'll show you now. So that's supposed to show first film within a film. And that was by a chap called Robert Paul in 1901, who showed the Lumiere brothers film inside the film and showed this rather strange little guy dancing around then jumping out of the way. So one wonders whether interactive cinema and interactivity using film was actually fiction right from the start. So that's kind of my opening point, my opening challenge to you. I'm going to see how fast I can get through the rest. Okay, so I want to talk about participation in cinema as well, in general. And obviously, this is a great example. And if I click on one of those things, I would probably show you a horrific clip from that particular production. Does everyone know the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Everyone Familiar with good. Okay. Now I want to also talk about involvement in cinema. And now this, I think, is quite extraordinary. I'll do this again. Apologies. Horrific, eh? Right, so that was an interactive cinema advert from the 1950s. Quite extraordinary. So, and basically what you're seeing there is you're seeing the audience participate in a cinema, in an advertisement in a screening room, and what the audience was asked to do was read out those lines. And surprisingly, I suppose, you know, it being the States, not that there's anything wrong with the States and different from the UK, but maybe we're a little bit more reserved. They did, and they shouted out, and that's what happened. So it's quite interesting. Audience participation in cinema. There's a lot of more recent examples which I won't go into because of time, but this is quite an interesting one. 13th Street Last Call, which is another interactive horror film in cinemas, where it was basically mobile phone-based voice interaction. If we have a bit, you know what, let's just give it a quick go, because it's quite interesting.
13th Street, the channel for thrillers, horror, and crime. The challenge, audience should experience horror as never before. The idea? The first interactive horror movie in theaters. In regular horror movies, the viewer's role is always the same.
Do you know what?
With 13th Street, the horror film becomes an interactive thrill. The viewers play their own parts and are able to communicate with the protagonist. We developed a software that allows for such a dialogue via voice recognition. A flyer invites viewers to send their phone numbers to the speed dial database. The software selects an audience member and phones him or her. Then, through voice recognition, a dialogue between viewer and protagonist takes place.
Hallo? Hallo? Du musst mir helfen. Ich weiß nicht, wo ich hier bin. Bleib dran, ja? Ja. Okay.
The answers are converted into commands, and the software plays out the corresponding scene. Because of this, each caller creates a different film. Not only do the viewers hear the protagonist's voice on the phone, they experience her steps, her breathing, her entire fear up close and parallel with the film.
Links oder rechts?
Big.
Soll ich raus oder runter?
Runter.
Also, da unten ist jemand. Dann geh hoch. Okay. Was soll ich tun? Soll ich helfen oder weiter?
Weiter.
Helfen! Geh weiter!
Yeah, whatever.
The film hit its target audience exactly. Film lovers at cinemas.
Yeah. I get a bit fed up with that voice after a while, but sort of interesting stuff. You know, people really starting to do some. That's really a horrible light. Starting to do some experiments. Yeah. It's not so long ago. Let's see what else we got. After, whoops. Okay, interactive television. Scare. But you kind of know all this stuff because you've read all about it, and it's quite old now. But it's the talk of the TV business. TV is no longer particularly profitable. The film and television entertainment department, film and television, by its remit, talks about adjunct material for every television production, student production or whatever, and that's pretty much common across the broadcasting as well. So television does not stand alone anymore. Whether it's interactive or not, who knows? It's just bundled more stuff, isn't it? So, you know, for example, second screen. Anyone heard of this idea of second screen? Yeah, for the second screen. Okay, second screen. So apparently when everyone sits with their iPad, and this is as well, sit with your iPad on your lap when you watch TV, and funnily enough, you have pay more attention to what's on your iPad than TV. So people have hit on a great idea, but wouldn't it be great to link the two together? So like what's on your iPad actually connects with what's on TV. So for example, State of the Union, we have your opinion. Very kind of really interesting thing. I'm sure you guys, and the whole idea of putting this forward, I suppose, for all you lot, is to, I seem to have dropped this, is that bad? Someone should have told me. I've been tramping on the microphone. The whole idea about putting this towards all you lot is you can all do better, you can come up with more interesting ideas, whatever the medium. I just want to do this really quickly. So what? And my question to you, because as well as leading a course on the next developer, where I met Jeremy, I am also a bit of a theorist. And I asked this question: in order to participate in media, in order to participate in an experience, in an entertainment experience, is it that you have to do something? Is that what participation is? You have to call the cinema, call the movie on the phone and tell the person where to go? Do you have to shout at the screen to tell them about butternut coffee? Is that really interactivity? And again, it's just it's a question to throw out there. What about literature? What about theatre? What about pre-digital media? And this is what I wanted to postulate, is I wanted to ask, is the story that plays in our heads as viewers, is it the same as the one in the creator's head? Okay, so is what we see, what we feel, what we experience, is that our story? How much are we bringing as an audience to our experience, or how much is it the author's intention? It's not straightforward, is the answer. So I'm not going to throw it out like I normally do and get a big discussion going, because then we'll be here for a long time and you'll never hear from Dave, which will be sad. So I'm just saying it's not straightforward. And a lot of people have really figured this out a long time ago, particularly French intellectuals in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. In fact, French intellectuals since the French Revolution. This guy, Roland Barthes, postulated that authorship is no longer a useful concept. The author is dead. He wrote in Image, Music, Text an essay which said that a written work, a written text, only lives with the interaction between the artifact and the reader. It lives in your minds. Just because I've written it, I'm not important anymore. Writers forget it. Authors are dead. Writers are dead. It lives in the mind of the reader because we've got so much to offer when we read things. So what I'm asking, what I'm pointing out perhaps on a theoretical basis, is that this contemporary, does what we're doing now, what you're doing downstairs, what you're creating for your players and users or for yourselves, does it really expand this proposition that authorship and everything happens in terms of the interaction and interplay between the player stroke audience and the media artifact? Excuse me, losing my voice. Yeah, I'm going to skip over that one and get to the key. So, games. How does this work for games? What does it mean? And this is where I'll thank you. I have a glass of water. This is where we cut to the chase. I'm really here it's a thinly veiled disguise of promoting an MA course, which I'd like you all to apply for at the National Film and Television School. A new MA in Games Design and Development, which started at the beginning of this year. February 2012. It's been running a few months, and it runs alongside a whole lot of other established media forms: film, television, visual effects, animation. And the way the film school works, since I'm cutting to the chase, is that we have small specialists of 8 people studying film directing, 8 film producers, 8 production designers, 8 sound designers, 8 animators, 8 composers, etc., all working together on graduation, on second-year projects, on their postgraduate projects, adding to this mix 8 maximum games designer developers. How's that going to work? How's that going to work? How are we going to work together with all the other specialist TV and film disciplines? Well, it does work, and we've started it. Anyway, that's as a background to games being are we still the errant child of the media family? Are we culturally simplistic? Are we over-reliant? As my friend over here, the last year's winner, the famous Aaron, indicated that really when you're talking to people who are not necessarily mainstream game players, and there are a lot of them, there are a lot of people who don't necessarily play games as much as we all do, you have to be very careful. You didn't even call it games, you call it interactive media, and there's reasons for that, because it gets a bad rap. So are we over-reliant on combat, violence, competitive sports? Is there significant audience gaps? Is there too much technology, not enough art? So that's all the question. I've got a funny little video that goes behind that, but I'm going to probably skip that one. But the idea is now games are the drivers of pervasive media. The games technology and techniques that you all are becoming proficient at drive media experiences that can happen just about anywhere, on your portable device in your pocket. The advertising billboard is no longer an advertising billboard. It's an animated movie that probably can respond to a Bluetooth input or even your presence. When you get money out of the bank, there's probably a little rolling ad that can interact with your card. So there's this, and the other thing that games can do as a pervasive media engine is we can make much faster animations, much faster movies, because the real-time digital animation that Games Engine produces means that you don't have to hang around for render time when you're creating a movie, creating a pre-rendered movie. So things like pre-visualization, machinima, all that sort of stuff. So, right, confluent media. What sounds like something you flush down the toilet. And in many cases, that's probably a good idea. Anyway, let me just talk about how games acceptance now, as we alluded to. I'm sorry to hop around, but I just wanted to make this nice and fast so we have a chance of getting out here before midnight. BAFTA's an interesting organisation, isn't it, Jeremy? Really interesting. British Association of Film and Television Arts. You go there, 195 Piccadilly. It's the great and the good of the film and television industry. The lovies, they're all sort, really people, David Attenborough, all these people hang out at BAFTA. It's all quite remarkable, really. But these are the sort of established stalwarts of these very, very respected art forms, film. They accepted television after a while as well, but it's cinema and television as art forms. So it's quite funny because in 1998 they incorporated interactive entertainment into this mix, and they called it interactive entertainment, taking a leaf out of Aaron's book. Don't call it games because all the film and TV members will hate you, so call it interactive entertainment. And that went well. They discontinued it a few years later. 2003, no more interactive entertainment division in BAFTA, 2003. But then, suddenly, because of the amount of cash and success and economic potential in video games, as they called it, in 2006 they decided to embrace video games as the third pillar of BAFTA. Okay, 2006. Well, since then, approximately, it's a very, very small percentage of the BAFTA members are games members. I don't have the stats, but it's quite tiny. And so it hasn't quite taken off as they might want it to. So this year, another very established institution in the media landscape, the National Film and Television School, embraced games. But it's actually in a slightly different way, because what we're doing at the film school is we're looking at games as part and parcel and joined up to all the other media forms. And so what we're doing is we're sharing the development expertise of production designers, cinematographers, visual effects artists, sound designers, composers, and games designers and games developers. And what happens at the film school on the course that I've just started is that all these disciplines can work together on major projects. And that's a kind of a different way of doing it. It's not separating it out like BAFTA does, saying that's games, that's film, that's TV, etc. It's actually saying it's all stuff we get entertained, informed, and edified with. Now that television is as interactive as anything else, games doesn't really hold the it's not the only interactive form. So we just look at it as part of the mix, which is quite exciting, because to work with really, really amazing production designers who are going to go off and work on Harry Potter in a couple of years' time, or on Batman, to work with amazing cinematographers who'll go and shoot go and work with Hollywood directors. It's a very exciting thing to do. Composers, sound designers, etc., etc. And so what we can do is kind of up our production asset values, and that's really important. I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome here. Okay, getting to the end, which is good. I managed to save 5 minutes. I've brought you back 5 minutes of your life. Right, so this is, the way that the course works is this, that everything is project by project based. It's a 2-year course, and it's maximum of 8 students per year, and it covers games design, game development, i.e. a bit of coding, game art, game animation. People can specialize, or more to the point, they tend to generalize in all these things. If they want, if projects need heavy-duty software engineering, it gets either bought in, or there's collaborations with other major institutions who specialize in computer science, for example, Imperial College, UCL, we're talking to Birmingham City, we're talking to City University and various other places. So the software engineering, we don't necessarily teach computer science for 4 years like Imperial College do, but we certainly talk to them and they get involved in projects. We do teach a little bit of coding, and very interested in that sort of art-code collision that our friend from Ulster was talking about. I think that is a really exciting course. But the way it's, as well as learning from nothing, 3D modeling, animation, game design, game producing, coding, ideas, development, anything else that falls into the mix. It also revolves around individual and group projects, lots of group projects. So the first thing we get the students to do is they do a group project called Hello World. Naturally, for the computer programmers around here, we call it Hello World. And this is what it is. I went to that thing where I read out the text on a PowerPoint. But you can see essentially it's a collaborative world-building project where each student has to build a section of that world, so there's 7 individual elements with connectivity. Okay, and that's a challenge because it has to all fit together, has to be one piece, there has to be interactivity, and there has to be some seamlessness. And I think, if I'm lucky, as a little... Oh yeah, we collaborate with production design, concept art, sound design to do some sound, composing, all sorts of stuff. And if I'm lucky, I'll be able to just show you a little bit of it. First output for the NFTS Games course, it was a historic moment after 6 weeks or so from the beginning of the course. Some of my 7 students have never done any 3D modelling or animation before, certainly no code, so I will see if this sort of works. It's a Fraps record, so it's not the best, but we'll do our best. And I am going to lower the lights because you can't see it otherwise. So this is me playing through it badly, and I will talk over it because I thought they'd do a nice little village set on a green or something, so it'd be nice and easy, you know, one of those sort of Unity terrains with buildings and people walking between it, all nice and simple. No, they didn't do that. They decided to do a series of labyrinthine caves, incredibly challenging. And being able to sort of navigate between those caves and sort of quite high concept stuff, a lot of work. So each room that you see, each area, is developed by one of the students. I think I can probably skip through some of it. I'll let you go into the... I'm going to just sort of do this randomly or else it'll take far too long. Okay, so here we are in this room. I did want to show you one bit before that happens. Okay, this bit is important. So you have this funny stuff to do as well. So as well as these rooms, you've got bits and pieces that you have to do. So you have to light that balloon, and up it goes, moving swiftly forward. He's now in a quite incredible room, which is... They decided to do a spiral staircase with water and all sorts of stuff. Quite challenging again, lots of sound effects. So up he goes. Can you kind of see that, or is it really dark? Okay, it's too dark. I'll get forward for you. Now there's another room, another corridor, moving forward into another room, which kind of looks like this eye shape at the end. And it's all gone very quiet, isn't it? Okay, so... I'll just let him do this because, so you've got this little thing there, you don't really know what that is. And there's the balloon that you lit earlier. And if you relight your, come on, that's me being lazy. Yeah, if you relight your torch, something vaguely interesting happens. Yeah, relight my torch off that balloon. And so this thing starts to go round, and also that unlocks a little key where, I wish I'd done this a lot quicker. Okay, I'll just give you the little reveal. So you go into this funny area you saw before. Where would life be without lens flare? Okay, so he's got this sort of funny dome-shaped room at the top. So you've got this, the first room was like with these cave teeth hanging down from the roof. The second room had this spiral. The third room had an eye shape. This room is a dome with lots of books. And eventually, coming up to the very top of it, it's difficult for me to skip. Actually, it's not that difficult to get to here. There he is. He's in the top bit now, and he has to do something to finish the thing off. So So he finds a fireplace. Oh, that's a little bee. He lights the fireplace, and then finally, it's quite dark on this monitor, but there you go. So you find out where he was in the first place. So that was a few weeks' work really, and they were learning. They were having their 3D modelling animation lectures, Unity development lectures, coding, screen arts, where they learn with everyone else, collaborating with production design. So they kind of had about 1 day a week spare to actually work on this when they were doing it, and that's what they came out with. So what they're doing now, what they've just completed is a second module, which is on app development. So they all created individually a mobile phone app using Unity again, iOS and Android. That was the rule that it had to work. And they just finished that. So we've got some projects there. Yeah, that's it.
Interesting thing for me, I don't know how the rest of you felt, but it's basically the idea of how you might bring an interactive component to a mass market screen. That's basically it. So, do we have any questions from the audience? One over here.
Is it strongly based on narrative, sort of gameplay essentially?
No.
Because you were going on about art and as opposed to tech.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you did mobile.
Yeah, we did mobile, and none of the mobiles were narrative based. Well, one was. One person did an interactive, one of these motion comics, motion graphic novels, but the others did tilt games, and they had to be very, very quick. They had about 1 week to do this thing, so there was no hand-waving storage, allowed really. So yeah, and also the other thing is a small course, so 8 students maximum. It's whatever the students want to do, it's whatever they bring to the course. Obviously, I'm an old screenwriter. I am a refugee from film and TV, so I will bring a certain lot of that baggage to it myself. But it's not up to me; it's up to the students. I've got my own work to do. So
One more quick question.
no more questions.
No more quick questions.
Because obviously the NFTS is originally about cinema and
Yes.
television as well, so kind of bringing this games element to it as well. Is it developing games that then serve the cinema industry or in some way? Because you talk about kind of interactive films and things like that, or is it?
Because we've got a 2-year course, we can do all sorts of things. But one of the elements is called, we give all these modules fancy titles. So one's called Playful Interpretations, where you take a transmedia idea from one of the TV entertainment shows or one of the graduation films, and you work with that team and you create a game's response. But it's not the game of the film. It's maybe, it's an adjunct. I don't know if you're into transmedia and Henry Jenkins. It's all about that, taking one idea, one property, spreading it across a variety of different experiences. So if a film has someone trying to fly a homemade aeroplane in it, for example, that could be an element of game. So there is an element of that, but it's not only that. We are not a service department for the other, for the film and TV projects. It's quite actually the other way around. All the sound designers all want to work with us. Why? Because they get very, very tight. It's very directorial if you're working on a fiction film. The film director says everything, no one does what they say. It's very authorial. It's sort of European determinism. In games, it's very collaborative. We just say, it's all a horizontal structure. So sound production design work with us a lot on our projects. The concept for that was done by production design, property and concept drawings and concept, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's more about, it's an exchange, and that's the whole idea. So within this ecosystem of film, television, visual effects, animation, we add games, and everything crosses over and flows together. Hopefully positive. Anyone who wants to apply, anyone who's interested, get in touch with me. This course starts in January.
and we accept applications up to about September for the next year's intake, and we've heard such great things about this and about the people doing this particular game jam and doing games at Ruskin. They're always interested in hearing from people here.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, John.
So,